Good morning, everyone. This is the moment where you can reply to me. Good morning, everyone. Oh, this is so nice to be in the room with other people. Actually, I wasn't expecting many people here because it's probably the only design session. Oh, not design session. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't run away. But it's the only session that has a... Okay, I have to probably turn it like this or so. Is it better? Yes. It's probably the only session which is a bit more about design patterns and things that we can use in e-commerce compared to many technical sessions that we have at the conference. Hold on, I better do it this way. Maybe this is even better. But there are many things that I learned in my career, in my work, that I want to share with you. And some of them are dirty, and some of them are tricks, and some of them are from the dark corners, but they are all related to e-commerce. Who is working in e-commerce frequently? And everybody else is just to have some fun. That's fair. That's okay. This will be interesting, I think. So this is me. This is how I used to look like, at least back in the day. Things change over time. But I co-founded Smashing Magazine, which is a magazine for designers and developers. And 50% of my time is still spent on it. 50% of my time is spent in consultancy, where I spend a lot of time with companies trying to solve front-end problems for them or interface design problems for them. But recently, over the last 2 years or so, I've become this e-commerce guy in Germany, which is where I grew up. And it's really interesting that you always come in a company of a size like Zalando or Otto or a few others, and you encounter very similar problems that can be solved in a very similar way. And these are kind of the patterns that I want to bring up today. But also we did a lot of work moving away from the old design to the new design with the new shiny architecture. And also learned a lot about e-commerce there, so I'm going to use it as a reference example as well. But in general, when we talk about e-commerce, and this is an intentionally left slide, one thing that's really interesting is that we tend to leave users in the dark for way too long, because actually, when it comes to e-commerce, this is surprising that anybody, like a reasonable human being, would come to a site and pay in the first place, because we make it very, very hard for people to come to our site and give us money. These are all the steps that people have to go through in order to give us money. And we just take it. We don't go on the streets to protest against it. And actually, this is kind of ridiculous. If you had to go through all these steps in a regular offline e-commerce experience, that would be devastating. And there are many, many things that can go wrong, of course, and they will go wrong. And eventually, even if you have these 26 steps, you will encounter credit card failure, right? And that means that you will abandon and you will go home to your parents or friends or relatives or dogs or cats or anybody and forget about the thing that you wanted to buy in the first place. But they, or actually us, developers and designers, well, we never forget, do we? No. We're going to spam these wonderful people who potentially wanted to buy something with the shopping cart abandonment emails, right? Because we know that they convert well. And then eventually these people come back, and eventually they realize that they need to type in the credit card data, they type it in, it maybe even works, and then they realize they need an invoice. They have to log in to download the invoice. And this is where they have to recover the password, right? To log in, to sign in, to download, and then cross the fingers and hope for the best. So given all of this, it shouldn't be very surprising that an average abandonment rate is 70%. That should be shocking. Imagine you're going to a grocery store, you put something in a basket, you go to the cashier to buy, and 7 out of 10 people doing that just leave the basket and go home. That would be a bit strange, right? And for us, it feels very normal, like 70% is okay. Well, this is an average in the industry, but this is a really, really, really bad result, because 7 out of 10 people who have an intention to buy end up not buying. And if we look into the reasons why people don't buy, they're always the same, always the same. People don't buy when they're expecting an unexpected behavior of the site. One of the things that is really surprising, people don't want to buy something that appears more expensive than the price that they committed to already. Right? If you go to that cashier in a grocery store, you know, or you looked at the label so you know what the price tag was, and all of a sudden you're supposed to pay more, even if it's just 5% more, right? Then people start getting suspicious and they end up not buying. So if you provide an extra cost, which is not transparent by default, people will abandon. If you force your customers to create an account, which is something that we as developers invented and thought it's a good thing,
Well, people will abandon because nobody wakes up in the morning hoping to finally create an account that day, right? That just doesn't happen. And if you force somebody to create an account, they might pick somebody who doesn't require that at all, right? If your website doesn't look credit card worthy or trustworthy, of course people will not buy. But the interesting thing from my perspective, from the usability or psychology perspective, people don't buy, like only 18% of people don't buy if it's complicated, meaning you use some sort of Magento or anything of that kind, which can be complicated, we'll talk about it in a moment. And of course, if you don't provide certain methods, like let's say PayPal, and somebody can pay only with PayPal, of course they will not buy, right? And this is from 2013, it was repeated in 2015. It's kind of the same story, really, right? So if you look into it, presented with unexpected costs, I was just browsing, found a better price elsewhere, website crashed. Well, if you're using Flash or Silverlight, that shouldn't be very surprising that you don't convert well, right? And a few other things. And so it's been repeated over and over again. It's always the same story. So that means that we can tackle, if we tackle the top five major issues, we can probably increase conversion. Surprisingly, most companies don't do it, because if we look into an average, and the average being this black dot here, right? This average that we have in the industry across all the different usability touch points, as they're called, like cross-selling and page design and checkout experience and all those things, we'll find out that most of the time, these top 100 retailers in the world are average at best, right? Which is, again, where our opportunity is. So if we want to tackle it, we need to figure out how to deal with those 5 things. Hidden costs, forced account creation, credit card trusts, complicated checkout process, and the payment methods. But before we do that, we need to understand how people buy, when they intend to buy. And that's where we have to think about behavior. Because the way we build our systems, our e-commerce platforms, are built in a very strange way, where customers desperately do not trust us. They desperately don't trust us because they feel, or they almost expect, that we're going to cheat them, or we're trying to kind of bring them into buying, although they don't even want to buy. The experience is often considered to be fragile. Especially in the checkout, people are afraid of clicking on links, or that they will hit refresh and they will have to retype all the data, right? Or moving back and forth in the checkout process, because our systems are not resilient enough to save the data input that the user has already provided, right? So this entire thing is considered to be very fragile and very often even hostile, because customers are reluctant to share private data or save credit cards because they don't trust price labels nor any sign of human kindness, which is coming from a user interview. That's very sad. We build these wonderful systems, and they're considered to be hostile and fragile. But they shouldn't be surprised, because we're building interfaces that look like this. This is one of the sites where I wanted to buy a ticket to go to a cinema, right? You end up on this beautiful site to buy a ticket to go to a cinema. You end up with a wonderful pop-up. We know how to deal with pop-ups. We close them, right? Well, not here, because they're going to open a new tab. Because why not, right? And then you close that tab, and you return back, and then you close it again, because you want to close it, and it shows up in a new tab as well, again. And then if you do continue, and you do want to give them money, you end up with this beautiful, beautiful warning before you are supposed to pay, right? Please check that the film, date, session, and the information shown above is the one you have selected for your movie ticket, since you will not be able to make changes or refunds when the purchase is finished, right? And it keeps going and going and going and going, and I know where it's coming from, right? Of course, our systems are resilient, and we need to show some warnings or error messages and things like that, but this is so confusing. And one freaking button that you need to click to buy. This is another interface, which is very nice. I mean, if you don't know German, you will need some help, because here is a form. And this is a question, oh, hold on, let me highlight it. Do you have children? You need to give me a good reason why anybody on this planet ever would think that having a slider with a pencil icon is a good idea to answer the question, do you have children? And the best part here is you can have at most 5. And if you click on a pencil and you tap in 7, it will highlight it as an error message, because you can't have more than 5. Come on, you're making a mistake here. So the interface, of course, knows things better than you do, which is just ridiculous. The next one is probably the worst of them all. So if you are sensitive against bugs, please close your eyes now. And it's not a joke. Oh, now everybody's looking. Huh. Interesting. So somebody had to design and build this, hoping that this is going to be a really good experience for customers to increase conversion, right? This is a bug selection tool with a wonderful configurator. We can select, what kind of problem you're experiencing. And I can almost imagine a designer somewhere in Photoshop sitting, let's make it a bit more blood splatter-like, right? And this amazing slider with bugs, that just looks incredible. And we build these things hoping that they will be, I guess, hoping that they will increase conversion, and in the end, they really, really hurt, right? Here's another one, which I really like. We all know, of course, the wonderful example of Ryanair. Anybody works at Ryanair? Good, because they will not like what I'm going to say. So they did a redesign, and it's actually pretty decent in some way, but I will never forget this one. So if you buy an insurance, if you book a flight with Ryanair, the insurance is added in for you automatically, unless you opt out. But to opt out, you need to know how to opt out. Because to opt out, you need to find it conveniently located between Denmark and Finland in country selector. This is nice, right? This is just great. And it gets better and better over time. But then somebody said, no, we can do better than this. Some of you might have seen this, an Instagram ad. People don't like when they have hair on their phone, right? Well, it's not my problem, but in general, that's the case. And so they photoshopped the hair in. So of course conversion increased because people wanted to remove it as well. But then somebody said, no, we can do better. We can do better. Let's add some dirt. So it appears like it's dirt. Now that's great for conversion. That's really bad for customer loyalty, right? And then somebody said, one thing that really works is email marketing. Right, so emails really do work. However, the problem is somebody opens an email and then it's marked as read and then it's kind of forgotten. Let's remind them so it's not forgotten. So this is how it usually looks like on iOS, right, when you have an unread email. But you can also add the same or similar symbol as emoji to the subject line. Right, so some people might not notice the difference. And we're using these tricks, which is why people really, really don't like this, of course. But of course, we will not be able to bring this conversion, this abandonment from 70% to 0%. The reason for that is that many people actually shop online very much like they shop offline. You go to a store, you try your jeans on, you like it, you don't like it, you're not certain, you walk away, and then you come back, right? And it can happen a couple of times. So people just come and randomly browse, and they eventually they come back, right? The interesting thing, though, is unlike offline, or in real world, which is a synonym for offline, I guess at this point. Normally, in our real life, when you take jeans, right, you put them in a basket or so if you have a couple, and then you walk around with it, and you leave it, and you walk away, you're kind of not assuming that when you're back 1 week later, the basket will still be waiting for you, right? However, people do assume that online. So if they add something to the basket and they walk away and come back to the site two weeks later or so, they actually expect those items to still be stored in the basket. So you have to be very concerned or very clear how often or how much time you actually save those items in the basket. The longer, the better, in general. But we do window shopping online in the same way like we do it offline. And in the interesting way, the shopping cart is used as a temporary comparison tool, like a wish list. But conversion is a tricky thing. Conversion differs depending on the time of the day and depending on the day of the week. So it's very surprising to see that some days are better for conversion than others, which is why many email marketeers will send their emails on Sundays. That is something you might have noticed over the last year or so. And the reason for it is very simple, because the conversion is the highest with the same design, with exactly the same design, with exactly the same front end and stuff, on Monday evenings in traditional fashion retailers, right? And it goes down very often on Friday night because we have other things to do Friday night than shopping, well, at least most of us. But at the same time, it also is very clear that conversion is higher at a few certain time points. One of them is when we know that people have time, and that would be after work most of the time, or during when they commute for work. But what's also interesting is that with every industry, you will see the same kind of similar pattern appearing where the conversion will be the highest for that time, between 8 to 9 p.m. However, people do not buy when they're busy or when they're hungry, or when they're stressed, or when they're nervous, or when they're panicking, or anything of that kind. So the conversion will be higher also after lunch or just before people have lunch, which is kind of interesting, right? But of course, the conversion is also very high on a particular mobile device. This is the first year, 2018, is the first year when mobile conversion rates have increased and surpassed desktop conversion rates, which means that we need to think about how to design for this beautiful device. Right? This movement of the palm, which is where we hold our phones, is very, very important. And so many e-commerce experiences are kind of designing specifically for the so-called thumb-driven design experience. And it's not working. Hold on, I need to refresh here. No. Wait for a moment. Yeah, that's better. So 75% of users will touch the screen with one thumb, so this movement is actually really, really important. And if we look into that movement, we'll find out that some areas are more accessible than others. So you think about the call to action button, think about the shopping cart icon, we need to think about where to place them. So we need to accommodate for the thumb, and I'll get to it in a moment. But there are a couple of things that are important to know. One of them is we tend to press on the, you will see how it all relates to e-commerce in a second. We tend to press on the surface with a different pressure point. It also depends, if it's a female or male hand, of course. And we tend to hold the device in a different way. And the most common ones are the ones at the bottom left, which are called one hand first order and one hand second order. And we're really good, because we've been trained like monkeys over the last few years or so, of actually scratching or moving across the surface of the phone. So which is why hamburger navigation, the click on the hamburger icon, these three horizontal lines, and the left or right upper corner are kind of okay. But we need to figure out what to do with these critical call to action buttons. Because most of the time, people will be using different postures. The only reason when they will be using this posture a lot, right, two fingers or two thumbs, is when they type. And most of the time it will be portrait, because we use landscape only for games or videos, right? So that means, though, that we need to be really careful about where we're going to place those icons. And this is very important for conversion, because people are really bad at hitting targets. I mean, I don't know about this guy. That's an interesting test here, right? But imagine that. So of all the, I think 45 or 35 people who tried to hit that icon on their phone that they use all the time, nobody, not even a single person, hit the center of that icon. So we're really, really bad at hitting those targets, which is why designers will tell you we need a big padding or spacing around it, which is still clickable. Because if a person cannot click on the zoom in icon or so, of course they will not click on it at all, right? So the input is always imprecise. And what's also interesting is that when people experience in the site, they experience the center most vividly. That means it's like essentially looking at the screen of a phone. It's very similar to looking outside of the window in your apartment. You never look at the bottom of your window, and never at the very top. You always look to the center of it, right? And so, of course, steps in the middle are much easier and more accurate, but if you have some buttons and the edges, they have to be bigger. That's essentially the point. So central area matters the most. This is where we spend a lot of time tapping, scrolling, clicking, everything, which means for us as people who want to improve conversion, well, if you think about that add to cart button or call to action button or a buy now button, it should not be on the top because it's too far away from the thumb. The best way it could be here as actually here, as it is done in material design, like this floating button, or at the bottom, but probably not on the top. So the most premium space is actually at the bottom at this point, and not at the top. So the primary content lives in the center of the content. This is where the content lives. And then you have secondary actions that would be at the bottom, and everything else would be at the top. Now, coming back to this is just some stuff that we needed to know. So let's tackle all of those things in detail now. And the first thing we need to figure out is pricing. We want competitive pricing, we want good pricing, but what do people do when they come to a product page for the first time? Well, how many of you go ahead and copy-paste the number or the name of that product you want to buy and try to type for it and search for it on Google just to see if somebody else has it cheaper? Okay, so a good number of people, I would say like 70–75%. Surprisingly, if you just show a little toolbox when people start copy-pasting, and say, hey, don't go anywhere, Don't go, don't go. We give you the best price, and if you find this product anywhere cheaper, we will price match. Now, this kind of causes two things to happen. First, people will never close that tab because they feel, oh, maybe they are right. Second, they will open a new tab and they will try to find it on Google, but nobody likes comparing because what do you do when you have to compare? Well, you add an item to the cart, you go for the first step where you type in your personal details, go to the second step, and then you have to actually type in your credit card data, and only at this point you're certain that this is the value, you're getting the value that you're going to pay in the end. So we do all this work, typing, checking, going from one page to another just to see the final price. Who does that? Okay, maybe 30, 40%. This is a very clear sign that we don't trust them, right? Because we don't know what price to expect. But nobody likes comparing because it's no fun, which is why these price comparison engines are so popular at this point, right? So this is a simple thing we can do to keep people on the site. But of course, we need to do a bit better. Because we need to provide competitive pricing, but we need to provide fair and final pricing. And this is why many sites are doing this simple thing now, where we need to know two things in order to provide final price. So imagine the experience, you come to the site for the first time, and you want to see the product page, with the final price for that product. What information do you need from the user for that? Anybody? Address? Not necessarily address. So you just need the location where it's going to be, or the country, actually, where it's going to be shipped to, and currency. These are the only two things you need to know in order to be able to display final price for standard shipping for that particular user, right? And which is why many companies at this point introduce this notion of estimated shipping. I think it's here at the bottom somewhere, right? Estimated shipping, where you can select. Well, here you can't select, but normally you can select where it's going to be delivered to, and then they're going to update price right there. But this is already in the shopping cart. This is a bit too late. Very often they will be just using IP to detect where the item is going to be delivered to. Instead of showing nothing, because they don't know what the price will be, they kind of estimate that if you have a European IP, you'll be from Europe, right? This is not always true, of course, in VPN and stuff, but most of the time it's already better than just showing nothing. So this kind of, okay, that's the first step. And at the same time, it's not enough to just show that estimated pricing. You need to also display the entire price breakdown to make it very clear what people are paying for. But then I found this on one of the sites, and it was very interesting. This is essentially where you start going to checkout, and this is where you can select the currency and the country of delivery, and then you click on update, and then the price gets updated. But again, this is fair, this is good, but this is a bit too late, because I want to come to the product page and see the price, final price, right there. So this is what we decided to do. You add the item to the cart, you end up with this little box overlay at the bottom right, where you can select where the item is going to be delivered to. And then you continue, and as you select it, of course, the price will update automatically. And I thought, okay, this is better, but it's still a bit too late, right? So we said, what if we do something else? So based on IP, we said, let's increase the prices for all products a little bit on our side, and then introduce free worldwide shipping. So the price is always final price. And in fact, if you go to the site now, it's going to tell you, final prices, no surprises. I'm very proud of this, right? So what you see is what you're going to pay right on the product page, right? And so as you continue and you keep going, it will show you in the sidebar like where it's going to be delivered to and a couple of other things. It's all the things just to avoid any kind of uncertainty of what you're going to pay. And then, of course, there is another thing that is required to know, which is what the person will be paying for. Sometimes they have payment fees, debit card fees, credit card fees, PayPal fees. And so this is what we used to have for a while. And you can compare it against this view. It's kind of the same message. So it says pay by card or PayPal free, right? But then you have here a couple of radio buttons. Pay by card, PayPal free. So this one, of course, converts much better, mostly because the previous one can be overlooked and it's also very passive, while this one feels like you actually actively make a choice. But in the end, we decided to stick with this one because the conversion difference wasn't huge. But in some cases where I worked on, this was performing better. Although it's kind of a shady pattern because essentially you're forcing somebody to interact with an interactive element, right? But that could work. But essentially what we're trying to do is eliminate all the concerns about the price at once. That means we need to communicate subtotal, taxes, shipping costs, delivery time, any kind of fees that could actually show up, and of course, taxes and the final price. So the best thing you can do, if you want to display the final price, when the person is coming to the site for the first time, you can show a little pop-up in the right bottom corner, not the entire takeover of the site, but a little thing so the person can select where the item is going to be shipped to and what the preferred currency is. If you can update, all the prices in the entire shop will be final prices. Which will require, of course, some front-end architecture there, but this is, again, something that's quite manageable and doable. So you can just prompt customers to specify location this way, and in that case, you will make sure that the person who is actually entering the site will see the final prices very early on. Another thing that's interesting is the way how we're displaying products. So there are 3 ways of displaying products, and especially there are some pages which are very, very lengthy, like a sales page. It might have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of products, and so we have developed methods for it, or patterns. One of them is pagination. You go to page 1, you go to page 2, you go to page 3, and good luck with the rest. Or you do the wonderful, magical infinite scroll. You scroll, and you scroll, and you scroll, and you keep scrolling, and you don't know how much to scroll, and you're hopeful, just hopeful that eventually you will hit that footer. Because if you need some information in the footer, you have to scroll. This is how it works, infinite scroll. But the problem is, if you see, let's say, 40, 50, 60 products, and you're not interested in one of them, the probability of you clicking to be exploring a product is very, very low. So is it good for conversion? There is also load more pattern, which is kind of an alternative to infinite scroll. You scroll down, you can hit the footer, but then if you want to see more products, you click on load more button, and then 20 more kick in, and you scroll down, and you click on load more again, and 20 more products kick in, and you scroll down, and you have to click load more again. So what is best for conversion? What would you prefer as a customer of your beloved site? Who would say pagination is the best? Okay, pagination fans here, okay. Where are my infinite scrolling people? Okay, there are some infinite scroll. So where are my load more button people? So it's like 30, 30, 30. Who doesn't really care? Well, most people, that's great, that's wonderful. So it's very interesting because if you normally, what happened is, people say pagination is bad. Why is pagination bad? Because it's slow. You have to go to page 1, to page 2, to page 3, to page 4, to page 5. And why do I have to go to the pages? Just show me more products. So you say, okay, so I'm going to show you more products, so let's have, load more button. So you scroll down, you can click on the button, and I would say, why do I have to click on the button all the time? And I would say, okay, so here's the infinite scroll, just scroll. Why do you show me so many products? Right? So people hate all of these options. That's the best part about it. But normally we think that if A doesn't work, and B doesn't work, and C doesn't work, then a combination of them shouldn't work either, not with people. People are very special creatures, because what seems to be working best is when you combine load more and infinite scroll together. But the idea is this. I mean, depending if you're on mobile or on desktop, you will see from 10 to 30 products at a time. Then you scroll down. On the first scrolling, we kick in 60 on desktop, and then we switch to load more. Why does it work? Well, the best part about it, you can always relatively quickly hit the footer if you need it. If you click on that load more button, we have the same pattern appearing again, right? And we introduce a lot of white space between the first batch of products and the second. So for people, they feel like they're navigating through pages. They're fast as they are with infinite scroll, and they don't have to click on the load more button all the time, and they hit the footer. That's like the best of all worlds, and it seems to be working best. So I'm not saying that it's definitely going to work best for you, but this is definitely something you can actually try and see if it works better. Another thing that's also fun is, of course, reviews, right? So here's a question for you. You have 2 products, or let's say 2 cameras, digital cameras. You want to buy one of them, you don't need 2 cameras. However, and they're kind of similar brands, like one of them is Sony, the other is Nikon, you kind of trust both of them. The problem is, one has 18 reviews with 4.5 on average, and the other has 8 reviews with 5.0 on average. Okay? So the first one has 18 reviews with 4.5, and the second has 8 reviews with 5.0. So, who would buy the 4.5 star camera? Let's say approximately 60%. Who would buy 5.0 camera? Maybe 4%, 5%. And who wouldn't buy any of them? Yeah, because normally 4.5 is not good enough for us. We're looking for something between 4.7 and 4.9, right? But we definitely are not looking at 5.0 because why? Because we don't trust them, right? Because we think that they might be fake. 8 reviews, come on, I can pull it off. I can ask my neighbors, I can write good reviews. The people don't trust us. So that means when we are looking for a good product to increase conversion, what people will be looking at are many good reviews, the more the better, of course, and some bad reviews. So if you have 0 bad reviews, that's the worst that can happen to your conversion. So you need to encourage people to write bad reviews, or write bad reviews on your own, which is not fair. Please don't do that. Right? But really encourage people to write bad reviews, because if the worst thing that can happen to my new laptop is that I can't use it in the garden when there is a sun streaming at it, I can deal with it, right? It's because people will be looking at the bad reviews first. So the best thing you can achieve with your product, if you really want to sell, tested in many, many, many different tests, is 4.83. That's the thing you want to achieve. So never go beyond that. I mean, if you have 600 reviews and your average is 5.0, then you don't have any problems in the world at all, right? But most of the time, it's not going to be the case. If you're beyond 500, you're probably going to have 4.5, which is better, of course, than having 10 reviews with 4.7, right? But if you can be up to a 4.83, that's a pretty good score. Because many people, most people, will prefer lower average despite higher ranking, which is kind of surprising. And you can really make use of it, because many companies do not. Because this would be a great experience when you cover over Flipkart on ratings. They actually show you what are the bad things, kind of extracting information from 1-star reviews, so you don't have to digest all those reviews one by one, right? And sometimes you can even, here on io.com, you can even sort by pros and cons as listed in reviews instead of specs or technical specifications coming in. And in fact, our ultimate goal should not be this kind of showing a category page, but something like this. Somebody comes to the page and they want to buy a smartphone. All right, so choose what you want to buy, a smartphone. All right, what do you care about most? What features or qualities of the phone you care about most? And then you're listing the products based on the reviews information first. And then, of course, they can switch to the tech preview, not the other way around, because this is what most people care about most. And in fact, AO.com has something very similar and interesting, where they have an FAQ section, where people who already bought something can reply or answer questions that people have who are potentially interested in buying that item. And if both parties value the conversation as useful, both of them get credits that they can use for the next purchase. Right? That's really, really valuable. If you could ask somebody who just bought your camera that you're interested in a week ago or 2 weeks ago about their experience and ask some very specific information that are really kind of important for you, that's very, very valuable. Right? And if that person answers, that increases your confidence and you might end up buying. Not necessarily on that site, but you might end up buying that product. Right? So that's quite significant. Another thing which is also interesting, which I have to mention here, hold on, is of course how to deal with our good old friends, coupons. So what happens if you come to the site and you want to buy, and you end up encountering this beautiful coupon input field, but you don't have a coupon? How many of you would go ahead and indulge in a wonderful, mysterious journey for coupon codes on coupon farm websites? Okay, maybe 40, 45%. So most people actually do that because coupons are valuable. Everybody likes a good coupon, which is why developers and designers decided it's a good idea to hide coupon input fields, which is good for conversion. And so, for example, if you take a look at our good old friend Ryanair, you don't have a coupon code input field. They have an accordion or expand pattern here. You have to click on redeem a voucher reward, and then that thing shows up where you can actually type in that voucher that you have. Right? Because people tend to spend a disproportionate amount of time actually looking at the coupon codes. And this is actually the same thing that Amazon does as well, where you have to click on somewhere, I think here, yes, here, on the link in order for that input field to show up, right? So you can de-emphasize it. That would definitely increase your conversion. But actually, there is a better way, and that's the one that we tested, and it looked fairly well. So there are many different options. Essentially, this is what we tested. If you have this coupon code thing, if you know that most people will go on Google and try to find one, why don't you just display a coupon code right here under the input field? You don't have one, so here is one for you. That might feel strange, right? But you need to imagine two people. There is one person right here that goes on Google, tries to find that coupon code, doesn't find it, or at least finds something. I mean, they always have something, right? You type in something and it shows expired, or is not valid, or anything of that kind. And to be honest, the probability of this happening is almost 90%. Because the coupons we find, usually they're not working anyway, but we have to try, right? We have to try. So when you have this coupon code and you have this red border saying, oh, it's not valid, oh, okay. Okay, so you continue and you check out, maybe, right? And then there is this person that goes on Google, tries to find one, finds one, types it in, and it gets a green border and a green check mark, and he's like, ah! I tricked the system, I found the glitch, I broke the matrix, right? So these are two different people with very different levels of motivation, right? And what you need to calculate as conversion is not how many people actually get to the last checkout step, but what is the revenue for that case, for that person, what is the revenue they're getting for that person, right? And so we decided to test a couple of things. One of them was to put the icon coupon code right under the input field. That didn't work. Obviously, but you can also decide to set up your dedicated page where you have all the coupons, right? So even if people try to Google for it, they will end up on your site. So the shopping cart will still be there, so they can actually go ahead and use it, right? Or you can submit one to one of those farms, coupon farms, by the end of the month, only for next month, right? And so people who want to find it will be able to find it. But of course, the problem with coupon codes, you can't just have a coupon code for 20 cents. It's like a little bit weird, right? So you need to have like 5%, 10%, 15%, things like that, and that costs you money. So if somebody uses discount code all the time, that would cost you a lot of money. So we thought, what if we submit an invalid coupon code to all the farms, and we accept everything that comes our way? So this is what's happening. So you go and try to find fun on Google, and you probably will find something, and then we show this little message saying, that coupon code seems to be fishy. Why don't you try, fish instead? Right? Approximately 92% of people are typing fish, and they're getting 1% discount, but all these people are in this state at this point. Yes, it costs us at this point for this purchase 78 cents, but that's very low compared to what you would usually have to pay. So one thing you can do, and that's the easiest way really, just accept whatever comes your way. So whenever, of course, if somebody has 15% discount, apply 15, but it doesn't matter what they type in, just accept it and give them 1%. That would be the easiest way to do. And then measure, of course, what happens here with these kind of people and what the revenue for that kind of person. You will see dramatic differences. But then, of course, we know the security seals, the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful beauties that we all love. Do they work? Depends. That's always an answer. If you ask people, dear people, tell us which of these badges gives you the most sense of trust when buying online, this is what people will tell you. 36% trust Norton, 22% trust Google, and 19% trust McAfee Secure, and then you have the distribution for everything else. Please notice, this is a custom designed that has nothing to do with all the brands. It's just one designed, It also gives you a bit of kind of some sense of trust, right? But people trust customer-facing brands, right? So initially the idea would be, let's just plug in Norton, Google, and McAfee Secure, but they all cost money, right? Mostly. And it will increase conversion. Well, the result is conversion will drop. Very likely it's going to drop. Because when people start checking out, they don't want to be confronted with the thoughts of security, because people don't really have an understanding of security and privacy and what it actually means. So if you confront them with all those things saying secured by McAfee secure, then, oh, security, right. So the conversion will actually go down. So it might be a good idea to test one of them, but definitely not 3 of them on the same page. And also you can just plug in, your own custom illustration. So it's like beautiful, and here's a padlock icon. Because it's running over HTTPS anyway, right? So it doesn't matter. But in the end, you might really think twice about using them or not. But some sort of security hint is useful, so at least try to use one of them. But most of the time, something like a padlock icon would actually work fairly well as well. So homemade icons or padlock are the best. Just copy the one that Chrome is using, make it green, put it on the button, like Buy Now button, and you'll be fine. Most of the time, right? But then, of course, there are other things that are quite interesting. We like emails. We like gathering emails from people because we want to spam them, which is a fair thing to do, right? But the problem is we tend to gather emails in a very strange way. When people start checking out, what do we have? Well, we have first name, last name, type in your email, and then verify or retype or confirm your email. How many of you copy-paste the email when asked for the second time? So we're all developers, so that's that's clear. But approximately 60% of people are doing the same, especially, of course, on mobile, which is very important at this point, as we know, right? So some people, like us, develop techniques. Very interesting techniques. One of them is let's block them. We will not allow them to copy-paste. Good luck copy-pasting, right? That's just mean, right? People don't like that when you disallow them to do something, right? And they will find their way anyway. Right? The other thing is, and this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life, somebody said, for the confirm your email thing, we're going to break it down into 2 input fields. One, the part before the @ symbol, and one, the part after @ symbol. Good luck copy-pasting, right? And to that I say, you know what? I can copy-paste once, I can copy-paste twice. That's not a problem for me. There is no way I'm going to retype. This is a matter of principle at this point, right? So email verification really doesn't work. If you do it this way, it doesn't really work. What we need to ask ourselves is, when do people, the customers, care most about the correctness of their email? When do they really, really, really care? Definitely not when they start typing in first name, last name. That's way too early. Well, they care most just before they buy something, or when they bought something. In fact, the bought, like the thank you for your order page, is probably the most important one, because if you look into the funnel and how people experience the checkout experience, this gets slower and slower and slower and slower, and it's the slowest when they have to type in the credit card number. But then it gets even slower, because when you see that thank you for your order page, you don't close that page, do you? No. You don't close this page. You keep it lingering for a while, you open a new tab and so on, and what do? You check your email. Because you don't want them to screw you, right? So you do that thing, and then of course you wait for maybe like 30 seconds. If it doesn't arrive, you start getting panicky. And what do then? Right, you would take a screenshot or save it as PDF and put it somewhere in a folder so you can find it later. Who does that? Okay, so I know you so well, don't I? Yes, I study you for a living. I can give you a personal profile for every single person in the room later, right? So this is where people really, really care, right? Because they really care about the correctness of the email. So what you can do is very simple. Have a big step in the confirm your order page, confirm your purchase page, where you can say your order confirmation will be sent to that email address. You can always change it. So you click on email and you can change it. And this is what happens after you finished it. So then you can also change it on the thank you page as an overlay here. Right? So if you type in another email, that will be saved as a secondary email in your user profile later. Right? Which kind of makes sense. And the same goes for password as well, which we need to talk about in a moment. Right? So the best way to deal with email is to ask to verify it just before somebody bought something and when they actually bought something. But of course we need to deal with password as well when we're talking about email. And some of you might have seen this beautiful design. It's pretty cute. Well, you start typing and it kind of interacts with you. Right? That's kind of cute in the same way. But this show hide pattern that you find for password is very, very important because approximately 89% of people, when they start typing, that's nice. Approximately 89% of people who actually started typing will click on show after the third character because most of the time we're working when we're filling in those forms in quite secure environment, right? And so this is a very important pattern to use. But at the same time, what's also important to use is to look into what kind of passwords people have. So if I ask you, hold on, let me just pause here for a second, you'll be laughing all the time. Come on, stop, right? If you look around and ask people how many passwords they're using or what passwords they're using, you'll find out something interesting. So you are using mostly password manager. Who does not use a password manager? It's a safe place. It's a safe place. Okay, so given the number of passwords that you have, here is what is usually happening to most people. I mean, they would have a very secure, long, strong password for Facebook. Right, that's a very important one. Lowercase, uppercase, exclamation mark, emoji, special characters, dots, full stop, dashes, anything, everything will be there. It's a very secure one. Then you have a Gmail one, very secure one as well, lowercase, uppercase, exclamation mark, everything. Then you have an online banking one that most people remember, which is usually not that long, but it's okay. It's average, but it's okay. And then you have the fourth one. If you wake up in the morning and somebody asks you to create an account, many people will be using that fourth one. But, well, is it true, more or less? More or less. You don't trust me. That's okay. But then what's interesting is if you have that fourth password, but you come to the site and your password is not good enough for them because something is missing, like an extra exclamation mark is missing. So what do? What do most people do? Well, they take their password that they use as a baseline, and then they add those characters that are missing just to meet the requirements. How many of you do that? Oh, yes, a large number of people. And we do the same with phone numbers. So somebody asks us for the right phone number, you're going to type the right format with your phone number, and then you will change the last 2 digits, or just one, so they can't spam you. Right? So this is a very common behavior that people have. And in fact, if you look into those passwords, if you have to add those special characters, this password will be forgotten the moment the person finishes checking out. They will have to recover it next time, and the recovery is very expensive. If you look into some use case studies on Etsy, 75% of people who try to buy something and are forced to create an account or check or sign in will not complete a purchase if they don't remember a password. Whenever you think about security, and that's a very important thing, usability is a kind of a different side of it. So you can prioritize security, but that will really hurt conversion. You can prioritize usability, but that will then, of course, hurt your security, right? Because the best thing you can do is to accept what comes your way, so to say, and also instead of having this kind of password recovery thing, when people will have to go into the email, go and kind of retype the email address, just send them a magical link that Slack, for example, is using, right, so they can log in and call today. That's much better than asking somebody to retype the password or reset the password. Because many people will be using the same one, and of course, we know for security reasons, we will not allow them to do that, so they will come up with something that they will forget the moment they set it up, right? Which is actually, again, pretty bad. Right, and then finally, the last one that I want to share is how to deal with the review page, because on the review page, one thing that people really hate is that when they encounter a problem, maybe a simple thing, like the first name is wrong, or the last name is wrong, people get confused all the time because we as developers do what when somebody wants to make adjustments? Well, they click on the edit button, and they go all the way back to page 1. When they have to retype first name, last name, potentially other things that we haven't stored in local storage anywhere else, a service worker, right? And then they continue to second step, where they sometimes have to retype credit card data. Because of PCI compliance, we're not allowed to store any data, of course, right? And then they move on to the review page again, and then they realize, damn it, my postal address is the old one. So they click on the edit button again. They land up again on page 1 when they have to retype again that thing, and they go to step 2 and they have to retype the credit card data for the 3rd time now, and then they end up on this page again. That's super frustrating to people. This is why they don't buy, because they just feel frustrated. And so what we decided to do is, why don't we just display this inline? So you click on the edit button. Hold on, I have to move. Click on the edit button. We just break down that input on the review page into input fields. You make your changes. Of course, if it's a credit card change, you have to go back to step 2, right? But here you can just change your city and other things. You click on OK or Save, and you call it a day. You continue, you click on the button, you finish checkout, you're done. Right? And so this is probably the best you can do today. And only few systems do that. Actually, I don't know any big one that does it. Definitely Shopify isn't doing it. Magento isn't doing it. And it's really hard to implement this logic there as well, in Magento at least. And so, of course, we built our own because, why not? But this is a very, very important thing that you can take away from this. Now, to wrap up, what can we do? There are many things we can do, and they're all not difficult. It's not like a magic science or so. We display final price early on. We ask for the country of delivery and currency first. We try load my infinite scroll. Alternatively, if it doesn't work, we can use pagination. The reviews matter. The bad reviews matter, but you're aiming for 4.83. We can accept all coupon codes that come our way, but de-emphasize the field. The seals can matter, but you always have to test them. I didn't show that one, but it's kind of obvious. Very often you get this country selector with 292 countries. You have to find your country. Anybody from Netherlands here? Yeah, poor Netherlands, because sometimes it's the Netherlands, sometimes it's Netherlands, sometimes it's Holland, sometimes it's in Dutch, sometimes it's in German, sometimes it's at the top because it's one of the fancier countries, sometimes it's in the middle, you never know, and you have to find, you have to look for it. So if you just have autocomplete, we're all familiar with autocomplete pattern, that can solve this problem for good. You type in Holland, you get Netherlands as a result. That would be great, right? You can validate email right before, after purchase. Review page is the most important page. And essentially, if we can seek beyond web forms, and I haven't covered that, but there is a payment request API that allows you to actually get rid of forms altogether, because in the end, web forms are kind of, or should be, the last resort. So actually, I can show it. Just 1 minute, really. Because this is a patent. Anybody likes patents? No, I don't. But this is a very important one, which was filed by Amazon for one-click checkout. And in fact, it actually expired on September 11, 2017. And if you don't trust Wikipedia, which is a fair thing to do, you can go to Google Patents, which doesn't lie most of the time, I guess. And you will see that it actually has expired. And the one-click checkout is that patent that Amazon filed 20 years ago, which essentially didn't allow us all, developers, to implement a one-click checkout. When you click on a button, boom, you bought something. And it's very interesting that especially around that time, payment request API showed up, which allows you to totally automate the completion of input fields on behalf of the user. And this is what it would look like. You want to buy a book, and I have some books here on this next to registration. You can come later if you want to. So you end up in a form. You can get a lot of information from the browser already, and even better, you can also automate it in a way that if the customer is, hold on, I have to pause here for a second. If the customer, hard. So here's what's happening. When you click on this one-click checkout, and it's really up to you to how you're going to implement it, this thing shows up, which is a native dialog, where you can select what card you want to use for that purchase. You select one of them. You can, but you don't have to, verify your identity with the CVC code. You click on Pay or Confirm. You don't have to type in anything. You just, boom, it's done, right? So it's really up to you to figure out how you want to use it. And because it's a native dialog, of course, it's supported everywhere as well. And as you saw in the previous example, like Safari is supporting it, Firefox, Chrome, of course, also support it. And it's supported also natively on mobile, so you don't have to build anything for it. You just use the API. That's pretty cool. It kind of really resolves the issue altogether. So, again, in the future, I think, like in a year or so, we'll have forgotten about the forms most of the time, although we do need to provide a fallback. So, I've covered many things, and what I want to leave you with is a very short video of 30 seconds of the story of my life for the last 2 years. We did a lot of experiments, a lot of tests, a lot of strange usability studies. We looked at a lot of people there as well, and what turned out is that it doesn't matter what you do, you will never get it right, and you will never make everybody happy. And maybe that's a good thing. So welcome to the story of my life. Can we also increase the volume for music? Sounds familiar? Oh, I can sense so much pain here. Thank you so much to Pearl Studio for the wonderful video. It's a bit sad, but I have cats and more cats and meow and thank you, and I'll be on the registration desk later today, well, after the session. Thank you so much for being here.